Step on up, sit down, twist off that bottle top or crack open that can, and welcome to Porch Matters. This is Terry Cagle coming to you from my back porch. Yes sir, yes ma'am, the name of this show is authentic. On Porch Matters, our saying is this: big issues or just a friendly conversation. No topic is off limits. We take pride in being able to talk about anything with each other in an open discussion. Open discussion is one of the only ways to learn. Your perspective could be changed. You could change the perspective of others. Friends and family, welcome to another episode of Porch Matters. I'm glad you're here. I hope everyone's had a great couple of weeks. I got a good conversation I'm fixing to share with you. But before I do that, if this is your first time listening to Porch Matters, I want to thank you for listening. I hope you enjoy the show. I hope you like, follow, or subscribe on whichever platform it is that you're listening to us on. I don't know about your last couple of weeks. Mine has been a train wreck, dumpster fire, whatever it is that you're using to describe a terrible week or 2 weeks that you've had. Work has been absolutely crazy, and quite frankly, it's been the most hectic and stressful for me that it's been in forever. My learning curve has went from being just steep to almost straight up and down. And it is what it is. Not complaining, but it is what it is. New drivers coming in, having to learn who and what they are, what they can do, this, that, and the other. Been a lot of 14 to 16 hour days. Little exhausting mentally and physically, but you know what? This too shall pass. Either this too shall pass or I will pass. Either way, we're going to get through it just fine, and everything's going to be great. Now it's time for the Porch Matters food review. A couple of weeks ago, Stacy and her family went up to a tractor pull that is held annually in Lexington, Alabama to raise money for the local fire department. I drove up and met them. On the way up, I detoured into Decatur and went to the place I spoke about in a previous episode that me and Stacy was going to go to, but they were closing in 10 minutes. I went to a restaurant named Such and Such. It's right on 31, about a quarter mile from where 67, or what locals call the Beltline, crosses. I walked in and really liked the vibe of the place and how it was decorated. They had music, and the music video of each song that was playing over a TV hanging on the wall. I walked up to the counter and ordered the home-style cheeseburger and fries. I also ordered their version of a brisket sandwich. They sell tacos as well there. I started to order at least one taco so I could share my thoughts on it, but I didn't. We'll have to go back up there and try that. The burger was really good. The brisket sandwich comes out, and they had the brisket shredded up on the bun instead of slicing it like some places do. It's nothing fancy, but it had a really good taste to it with the barbecue sauce they served. Service was really good. I got there at a time where they wasn't real busy. Enjoyed the meal and I left. Such and Such in Decatur, Alabama is definitely #Fatboy approved, and I look forward to going back in the future. If you're ever in the area and looking for a quick and easy burger, brisket sandwich, or taco, but don't want fast food, stop by Such and Such and tell them you heard about them on Porch Matters. Would you rather question the last episode was, would you rather never read another book or never hear another song? Mark Watkins says, never read another book because I can always listen to the audio version. You got a point there, Mark. Kelly Curtis says book, but this is extremely hard because I love to read and I love music. Hiller Custom Woodline says easy, never read another book. Cindy Arroyo says, he said bye to the books. I said, I'm not giving either up. He would be referring to her husband, Victor. Hi, Victor. John Michael Bowen says, hear another song. Terry Woodall Cisco says, I can't answer this one. Both are so important to me. Robert Jesse Dominguez says, music all day. On Instagram, Domestic Aggressive says, this question just breaks me. I know, Domestic, it was a tough one this week. I sure do appreciate everybody putting their answers down. Really enjoyed reading them. Really appreciate you doing it. Would you rather question this episode is, would you rather buy a beach house right on the water or buy a cozy cabin on a mountain? Now, you can't say both. You have to pick one. This is a tough one. Personally, as much as I want to say buy a beach house right on the water, I'm going to say buy a cozy cabin on a mountain. And here's why. I love to vacation on a beach. I don't know if I could live on the beach. Granted, I also love to vacation in the mountains. But I think I would rather live on a mountain as opposed to live on the beach. But I couldn't go wrong either way, and neither could you. What say you? Please go to the Facebook page, Facebook group, Instagram, or Twitter and comment your answer. Next episode, I will read your comment on the show. On this episode, Justin Smith comes on the porch. He is at B_the_man_bam on Instagram. I really enjoyed his post and liked what he was saying. I reached out and asked if he'd want to be a guest on the show. And this conversation is one of the many that I recorded on the week of the 4th of July. So if you hear some things and wonder, that's why. I really like the message that he's putting out. He says this in the conversation as well. We are really like-minded on a lot of things. Little disclaimer, there is some background noise, and his signal does go in and out a little bit. But please look past that and listen to what is said. I think you'll like the conversation just like I did. Justin, I appreciate you coming on the show. Looking forward to round 2. Without further ado, let's get started. Justin Smith, welcome to the porch, my friend. How are you?
I am great. Enjoying this July weather.
I'm glad somebody is. I've been sitting out here for about 30 minutes. I got my equipment all set up, and I'll just lay it all out here for you so you can help picture this.
All right.
I got an original Rodecaster Pro. Got it hooked up to my laptop. Got my webcam on top of it. Got my Shure mic sitting right here next to me, as you can see. Just walking that from just right here on the other side of the door out here and getting it set up. My shirt is soaking wet. To say it is hot out here is an understatement. I'm not built for this. I'm a fat boy. We ain't okay in this heat wave. How about you?
Hey, I hear you. I'm pretty similar. You're right. You're a little more south than me, but man, it's been hot. I've got 4 kids, and we've been doing Little League for the last 3 months.
Bless your heart.
Woo, it's hot.
I got lucky. I got to go and see my second cousin. It was his first year playing T-ball. I've said this before. I'll say it again. If you've never went and watched a T-ball game with some of those little fellas and little girls playing ball, you are missing out. It's better. It's a whole lot cheaper than any comedy club, and you'll get 10 times as many laughs.
You are correct, man. You are right. It's like herding cats when you're out there, but man, it's fun to watch.
Yes, it is. So what's been going on, my friend? Other than
Well,
softball or baseball or whatever.
yeah, life is always busy. You got family going on. I've been, I know you're into smoking stuff as well. Your Traeger. I've been listening to some of your episodes, and I smoked pulled pork over the last couple of days, and we've been eating on that for a few days, and it's still good, man.
Oh
It's
yeah.
still good.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Just like you mentioned, I'm sitting right next to it. I'm literally patting it right now like it was a dog.
Oh.
Oh yeah, I'm right here next to it.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, I got into it probably about a year ago, and it's well, not quite a year. It was around Christmas. My wife got me a Traeger, and she wanted me to smoke a turkey for Christmas. Well, it just so happened a few days before that, she got the COVID stuff, and then I got the COVID stuff. I'm out there smoking the turkey. I was feeling fine, didn't have any symptoms, anything. The day I was smoking the turkey, I lost all my taste and smell.
Oh man.
It was horrible. It was horrible, man.
Yeah. The first
So
I've tested positive for COVID twice. The first time
yeah,
it was right after Christmas, 2020, 21.
yeah,
You know what I'm saying? Right Christmas 2020, right there at the start of 2021. And
yeah.
at the time I was still driving a truck every day. My family had tested positive in between Christmas and New Year's, and my way my company is, the one that I work for, I don't own it. The way everything was set up, we were shut down that week.
Okay.
I stayed away from everybody. I mean, literally, I was social distancing great. Lo and behold, I went back to work that Monday. I again drive a truck. It's not like I'm interacting with anybody other than maybe a customer, but it's still a big distance away. Everything was fine.
Yeah.
I started noticing because I dip. Most people know that. And
Yeah.
I would get a can and I'd get me a pinch and put it between my cheek
Oh.
and gum. And then I noticed that I couldn't really taste
Yeah.
anything. So
Yep.
finally I was like, okay, well, I'm just fixing to see just what's going on. So I opened up a fresh can and I literally had my nose right there at the top of the can to the point where I almost inhaled it. Could not smell it. And I said, "Ah, crap." Then I had to call the office with some more bad news.
Yep. Yep. I hear you. Yeah, my wife got it first, and then I got it, and then the kids got it. And kids, I mean, they were over it in like a day. I mean, they just bounced back like crazy. But yeah, we had it pretty good there for a little bit. But we chose early on that we weren't gonna hide or anything like that. It was just if we got it, we got it, and that's part of life. You know,
That's
sickness happens.
That's the way we were too. I said multiple times throughout that first 2 years, I said, I'm not going to let a virus dictate my life.
Right.
It is what it is. If I catch it, I catch it. If I don't,
Yeah.
I don't. The only thing that I was going to worry about my circle.
Yeah. Yep.
And the way I always explained that was I'm going to worry about those that are closest to me. I'm going to do what I can to make sure that I keep them as safe as possible. I said, some people called me selfish and everything else for saying that. It is what it is. I'm not being selfish. If everybody took care of their circle instead of trying to focus on the whole world, like some of the media had been pushing at that time, just worry about you and yours. If you worry about you and yours, and everybody worries about you and yours, the whole world's took care of. Quit making it such a broad thing. Just fix it to where you're worrying about just the people right there around you.
Exactly. Exactly. You're exactly right. It's kind of interesting because we kind of pinpointed where we got it. We host this kind of cookies with Santa type thing before Christmas every year, and we knew there'd be lots of kids, all that, and that's the only place my wife had been. So
Yeah.
we knew that that's where she had gotten it, but at the same time, we knew it was because we gave a lot of. We live in kind of a rural, somewhat poor community, but and we knew this was probably the only Christmas these kids were going to have, and we said, you know what, if we get it because of that, and we get to share Jesus with these kids, we get to give them a good Christmas, we get to do it. It's worth it,
My
Part of
story,
life.
my story is somewhat similar. Where I live, we live in a very, very rural community, but I'm surrounded by my family, by my mother's family. We grandma was still here. She was in her 80s. She wanted to have Christmas. Grandma wants to have Christmas. We're having Christmas.
Yep.
And we went down. We had Christmas, had one of the best Christmases that we had had. And that's when pretty much everybody ended up testing positive after that. But, including her. And she ended up passing away afterwards. But, that was what she wanted. Good, bad, or indifferent. That's what she wanted. So,
you have to honor and respect that. Yeah.
Right.
For sure.
Yes. She didn't want to miss Christmas with her kids and her grandkids and her great grandkids. Let's talk a little bit about you, my friend.
Sure.
I'd really love to hear your story, and I'm sure my listeners would too.
Well, that's a long conversation, but
I got nothing but time.
Yeah, I'll bring it down a couple notches. But I grew up, I guess, around the Indianapolis area, Indiana. That's where I was born, raised, lived there most of my life. Went to a little college on the east side of Indy. I met my wife there. We got married shortly after. In a long about way, now we have 4 kids, and we are, in the middle of it. They're not very close together. One's 12, one's 8, one just turned 5, and one just turned 2. So we've got the broad spectrum there of family life going on. But it was there in Indy where I started. I always wanted to do people from a younger age. I had some key, including my father, but others as well, who kind of poured into me and pushed me to want to help other people. And I didn't know exactly what that was going to look like at first, whether it was teaching, whether it was, I didn't know if it was some kind of healthcare or something like that, and or something in a church, because from a pretty young age, I was raised in church as well. So I didn't know exactly what that was going to be like. But after my wife and I got married, we got into a good church, got invested. I had a pastor there who really took me under his wing and really poured into me a lot, and really pushed me, I think, on the course that I am today. I ended up going to a seminary in Louisville, Kentucky, spent some time there, did youth ministry for a couple of years in Kentucky, and then we're in Illinois now, which is a little different for me. But Illinois is just a little different. There's some things I miss about Kentucky and Indiana, I'll say that. But it's a good... Huh? Go ahead.
I understand. Been in all 3 states. There, big differences, and we'll just leave it at that.
Yes, there is. But we've been here for, I don't know, going on 6 or 7 years, and I'm a pastor here of a small rural church. I do lots of other things in our town here because it is pretty small, but we enjoy it. It's good. I think early in 2020, because you found me on Instagram and all that kind of stuff. That's where I found you at too. And early in 2020, I've listened to enough of your episodes to know that we are very like-minded on some things. And I could see the writing on the wall that some things were getting ready to happen. And I'm like you. I wouldn't call myself a conspiracy theorist, but when 2 + 2 = 4, it's pretty obvious. And and I started seeing the writing on the wall. Things were getting ready to happen, and there was a sense of not fear, but concern for what my kids were going to have to grow up in. I remember right after COVID hit, I had my oldest with me. We went into the grocery store, and there's no meat in any of the aisles except for cow tongue and liver. And she was concerned that that's what I was going to buy for her that week. I saw the look on her eyes, and there was this concern that I began to have. And I'd really had it for a long time. We look out, and even, there seems to be an epidemic, if you will, of fatherlessness, and also specifically boys not being raised into men. And I've noticed it, and I've seen it for a long time. A lot of it, for a long time, you just want to ignore it. You just want to say, well, that's that person's fault. That's that person's responsibility. And it kind of hit me because, you're doing your best to raise your boys. I mean, he's 8, so I've had a few years, but not a lot. He's getting ready to enter into those kind of more crucial years here. And we've started dealing with some of those issues already. But it started to hit me that the things that are going on in my head, I need to be able to put out there. So I viewed, at first at least, that Instagram or whatever, kind of like if my son looked back at this in 10 years, this is what I'd want him to receive. This is what I'd want him to know about. And that's what I want to push on him as a young person, as he grows up into fatherhood and manhood and all those types of things. How to be a man, really. That's what I wanted him to know. And I know it doesn't end there, but it also it's a starting point for me, because sometimes I have a hard time putting things exactly like I'd like to put them. I think we're all kind of like that in some ways, but but this is a way that I could do that. And, it's been fun. I've met some really cool people in here, and it's been fun to go through this journey with a lot of individuals.
Same. I can remember, I don't have any children of my own, but my girlfriend has a son. If you've listened to any episodes, you heard me tell that story till I'm blue in the face, but I'll tell it again. I've told him that if I'm going to be in his life, I've got to teach him. It's my responsibility to help teach him how to be a man. I've also got some second cousins that I try to be there for and everything like that. And I've even been accused of one even accused me one time. She's like, how come every time you talk to me, it's like a life lesson? So, I get it.
Yeah.
And my answer to that is I'm not getting to be around you near as much as I used to be. So I have to take advantage of the time that I have. But, I definitely agree with you. There is an epidemic of fatherless kids growing up. And as great as women are, they can't fill a man's shoes in that role.
No.
I'm living proof, because where I grew up, I'm still right here where I grew up. My mom and dad weren't the only ones that raised me. My mom and dad weren't the only ones that poured into me. As far as me learning how to be a man, it came from 3 different sources, mainly 3 different sources. My dad, my grandfather, and my uncle. I took pieces from each one of them. I've took pieces from every man that I have ever been around, good, bad, indifferent. You know what I'm saying? And
Oh yeah.
tried to figure this thing out. I think that's what we all do. So,
Mhm.
going back to what I told Xander, it's my responsibility if I'm going to, as a man, if I'm going to be around him, just like it's my responsibility to be a good example for my second cousins that are coming up.
You're exactly right.
And there's a lot of kids growing up out there right now that do not have that.
Yeah. Yeah. You see these stories about these teenagers getting in trouble middle of the night, or, we hear about Chicago a lot, even though we're not that close to it. And it's like, where are these kids' parents? Where are these kids' dads? I read this story about, or heard it online or somewhere, about this school in Louisiana somewhere that was having a lot of issues with kids, all that stuff. And a couple of dads took it on themselves to start kind of a school patrol team, if you will. And these dads started patrolling, and sure enough, within a week or two, all the behavioral issues stopped. All of them stopped. And it was because of like just a handful of dads took it on themselves to just be the leaders in that school, and really probably do more than what they should have been, but taking it upon themselves and trying to speak into some of these kids' lives. And many probably don't have very good father figures at home. And it's just cool to read stories like that, because it gives me a sense that, I'm not alone. You're not alone. We're not alone in this mission. There's a lot of us out here trying to do this, and we're trying to figure it out. And, I tell my son sometimes when he gets frustrated with me, I tell him, you're probably not always going to like me. You're probably not always going to like what I say, but there's always something bigger behind it. And someday you will understand. I'm trying to teach you. I focus on a couple areas like the calling, courage, competence, and there's some other ways that I areas I focus on. But your calling as my son is to grow into a man. Your job someday is to leave us and go start your own family. I mean, that's what God wants you to do. That's what I want you to do. That's what you're called to do. You're called to go and lead that family. And I want to give you the tools and the lessons, I guess, if you will, to prepare you for that. And I know there's only so much we can do, but I can try my best to prepare him for that in this life. And, it's fun. It's a little daunting at times, I think, as well. But, it's a huge task when you really think about it. But it's also fun. I enjoy it. I like this. And we work with a lot of teenagers, too. So we get to, kind of push them a little bit in the right directions, hopefully, as well. And it's fun to see them when the light goes on. And they see, especially as they start hitting that 17, 18, they think they've got it all figured out. We all did at that age. And all of a sudden they're like, maybe something he said actually is important, or something he said actually, that is actually real life. And it's just cool. It's just cool to see when kids get it. And that makes it fun for me. I enjoy this journey with them.
You mentioned calling and courage. How are you explaining courage and teaching courage?
I think one of the hardest things that is countercultural right now is to do hard things. Kids are taught from a young age, and I hear it all the time working with younger kids, teenagers, school kids. I mean, graduation, a lot of them, you ask them what they want to do or what they're going to do. Well, they were told to do whatever makes them happy, and you and I both know that's not real life. And I mean, maybe for some people, they may get to do what they want to do that just makes them happy. However, what's that show, Dirty Jobs with Mike Rowe? Not all jobs are going to make you happy all the time. I thoroughly enjoy what I do as a pastor, as a school, counselor type thing, and as a little league director, all those things. But there's some long days there. It's not always fun.
I just recently shaved off my beard that I had going on.
Yeah.
My whole chin was gray, and I just about promise you, half of that came from my job.
I know.
If any of my drivers are listening to me, hi, I appreciate
Yeah.
you, but they know that there are times whenever my job is very very stressful. So
Yep.
you know,
My oldest, she asked me, Dad, why do you shave your head, or why don't you have hair on top? And I tell her, well, it was about 12 years ago when it started to fall out. So that's about when she was born.
yeah, I got that in front of me too. I've got a bald spot like right there starting to come in.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
yeah, if it gets any worse, I'm going to be rocking your hairstyle, my friend.
Yeah. Yep. Both of my grandpas were balding, and I was like, I have no hope.
If it ever starts letting go, I'm just going to help it.
Yep. Yep.
The
Yeah.
only problem is my head isn't like a Stone Cold Steve Austin's or The Rock
Oh yeah.
or Jason
Yeah.
Statham or Bruce Willis or any of these
Yeah.
guys that look good bald. My
Yeah.
head is kind of misshapen and gotten a lot of dents in it because I'm 6'7" and I hit my head on a lot of stuff. So it's not going to be pretty bald, and that's what I've told several people who cut my hair. I'm like, they're like, how short do you want it? I said, it don't look half bad with hair on it. I said, but if I don't have any hair on it, I look like a mongoloid.
Oh yeah, that's funny. Yeah, I joke because mine will still grow on the sides, but I tell them, remember that Seinfeld show, George Costanza look. I'll have that big bald spot right here in the middle.
That's when you grow a mullet and look like Hulk Hogan, man. Just grow a mullet and look like Hulk Hogan.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, yeah. What was that? Yeah, but I mean, doing hard things. I mean, even things like taking out the trash, without being told, doing things, things that are age appropriate for him right now that are in a way showing courage, but also things he doesn't want to do. Like, making his bed every morning, just getting into those routines, doing things that are not really hard. We wouldn't call hard, but for a kid, I mean, it is kind of hard. And it's things that they don't naturally want to do. Or, for him or for one of my girls, she doesn't like to necessarily be in the front of the class giving a presentation. And, us trying to push her to do those things, even though she doesn't want to, or, things like that, that just kind of encourage them to, you know what, it's hard, but it's going to be worth it on the other end. My oldest has been, selling some cookies and things. It started out for like a 4-H project, but she's gotten pretty, I mean, it's pretty good at, baking and all that stuff. And she started selling stuff. And a couple of weeks ago, she started getting a lot of orders. She's starting to complain a little because, it was taking up a lot of time. And she was having a hard time, really fighting through not wanting to do it and all those things. Like, yeah, but the reward is going to be a whole lot better on the other end. And sure enough, when she got that payment at the end for delivering that order, she was pretty happy. Her eyes got really big. And I said, sometimes we have to do hard things to reap the best rewards. And oftentimes, I think in life, the hardest things we work for, whether it be marriage, whether kids, our jobs, whatever it is, the hardest things we work for are often the things that reap the greatest benefits. And I think, especially in marriage, marriage is hard sometimes, and you got to work through things when you have one person with their set of opinions, another person with their set of opinions, and you bring all that together. There's going to be some conflict, and working through those things and trying to push past them and come to a mutual agreement, even if you both disagree with each other. It's hard work, and but it's the hard work that I think on the other end makes us a whole lot stronger. I think, I in 20 in 2019, I kind of got into a little bit of strongman kind of competitions, which I watched it as a kid, and something got me back into it. I got interested in, kind of getting back in shape and different things like that. So I started lifting pretty heavy again. And, it's not the first couple months when you're going down, you're lifting, you're doing all those things. It's about that 6 month point where you're like, do I really want to keep doing this? Do I really want to go down one more time, hurt my, whatever, put that pressure on my back, do whatever? Or am I just going to quit and just, go on life support? And sometimes those mental barriers that we have to really fight through to say, yeah, but if I do this hard thing now, I'm going to be so much better on the other end. I'm going to be healthier for my family, for my wife, for my kids, for my church, my friends, whoever, for it on the other end if I fight through this barrier right now. And it's just pushing through hard things like that. It takes courage because none of that comes naturally. And I don't think our culture teaches us to do it at all. I think they teach us to do the exact opposite. And that's why you look through history. It is those who fought through hard things, who rose to the occasion. And I post a lot of that on my channel as well about people who did those things. It is those individuals who set I think, kind of standard for us. I think about Washington crossing the Delaware and the ice and all that. It would have been very easy. I mean, we just celebrated 4th of July. It would have been very easy for him to just say, man, it's too cold. This is a disaster. It's a horrible plan. But he rose up. He rose above it, and he led him across. And we reap the benefits today, I think. And it's just lessons like that point us to keep pressing on, keep going, and keep fighting, if you will.
Yeah. One of the things that people forget about that story was after they went across that Delaware, they went through one of the roughest winters of their life, whereas a lot of those soldiers died of hypothermia, starvation, freezing to death. If anybody ever does a deep dive, just that if you were to read and see what those soldiers had to go through on a daily basis just to survive, you might appreciate the 4th of July just a little bit more.
I think you are exactly right. Yeah. I wonder today if there's still enough men out there who could do it. And I'd like to think so, but I don't know. Yeah, I'm with you.
I'm like you. I'd like to think so too, but I don't know. I mean, we've never been pushed like that.
No, not at all.
Never. I mean, in a lot of instances, we've lived an entitled life, just like the generation that we were just talking about.
Yep.
We didn't have it necessarily as good as they do, but we've had it better than the generation before us, who had it better than the generation before them.
Yep.
So, exactly it is what it is. It's like that old saying goes, hard times create hard men, and good times create soft men.
Yep. Exactly right.
And this goes along with what you were talking about with courage. And I believe courage is good with that too, but you've also got with the chores, that's teaching responsibility.
Sure.
That's also teaching discipline. And where you were talking about how it's not getting back into the gym right here, it's 6 months from now. That's where the discipline comes in too, and that's a conversation that I have had with a couple of young people. And it seems like, and you tell me if you've ran into this or not, because you work with more youth than I do. The drive isn't necessarily there. Where, as far as doing the hard stuff, as you talked about, it's more of a video game generation. And I love video games. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
There's more to life than just a video game. And it's like they don't want to put in the work to earn the reward. Can you elaborate
Yeah.
on that?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. I have a shirt that says discipline over motivation. I mean, I think sometimes you need some motivation, but it's the discipline that will carry you through. And I completely agree. I think the last 30 years, at least 30-year-olds to 40-year-olds, we have lived in this kind of I there's nothing that's happened to us that has caused us to have to rise above.
No.
There's not been that thing. Like there's not been that World War II. I wouldn't say 9/11. I think it did a little, but not really. It wasn't the same
No,
as like World War II. But I think it did a little, but that quickly faded pretty fast.
We
And
we were
yeah,
some of the most patriotic people you'd ever seen for about 3 to
yeah,
6 months.
yeah, and I think now I will say this: I am beginning to see a little bit of a shift in some young people. I think there are parents kind of our age who are starting, and I think we're pretty close in age, but who are starting to see that something's wrong. Something's wrong with kids. Not everybody deserves a participation trophy. Not everybody deserves the same thing across the board. And I think, and maybe it's a lot of the cultural influences that are starting to annoy people. They're getting tired of hearing it. But I think I'm starting to see a shift with some younger people who say, yeah, I'm not going to coast. I'm not going to whatever university. I've got a kid right now who he knows exactly what he graduates this next year. He wants to go into welding. He has a plan. There's some school out in Wyoming that's world renowned for welding training. I mean, he's already taken some prereqs at a community college up by us. He has exact plan for what he wants to do. And it doesn't involve going to college, if you will, but he's going to be right in the workforce. He has his whole now on the flip side, he's kind of going to be useless to us this next year because all he's going to want to do is get out there and go to that school. And he's got to go at least half a year to his high school. But at the same time, I'm starting to see that in some younger people where they're saying, yeah, I'm not going to coast. I've seen that. And I do wonder if one of the things, because I'm usually a guy with a glass half empty or right in the middle, I tend to be a little more pessimistic. My wife calls me out on it all the time, which is, she's right. And, but I have to, fill that cup up a little bit more. So I've tried to look back at this whole COVID thing and say, what are some positives that came out of this? And one of those I think that a lot of younger people saw is that I need to have a plan for my life. I can't rely on this or that. I can't let that person dictate everything for me or just give me a handout or whatever. I need to have a plan right now, what I'm going to do with my life for the next few years. And it's not everybody, but I've been encouraged to hear several kids tell me that they know what they want to do. They don't have any plans on wasting time. They want to get right in there, start working, start providing. I'm pushing the younger guys to, get out there. Now, I'm not a college is bad for everybody. I'm not a college is good for everybody. I think if you know what you want to do and you put in the work, you put in the time. I have my bachelor's, I have my master's. I put in work. I knew what I wanted to do. Not so much with my bachelor's, but with my master's, I definitely did. And there's a clear difference in my work doing that too, because I knew I wanted to do it. So I put in more time and energy into it. And I think there is a place for that for young people. But at the same time, I don't think a kid wants to go to welding school, go to welding school. You don't need to waste money 4 years at a college that you're not going to do anything with. I am slightly encouraged to see there are some younger people starting to step up. And I'm hoping we have a little bit of an impact in that we can maybe push our kids, this generation coming up towards those kind of goals and kind of recapture some of the things that made America kind of great in the first place. It was a land of opportunity. It was a land that's, if you were going to make it, you had to do it. What are you talking? You're talking about 1883 or something a couple of weeks ago on a podcast. And I didn't get into Yellowstone, but I got into 1883. And I don't know why, but I really liked it.
I like both of them, but I if you make me pick between the two,
yeah,
I'm probably going to pick 1883 over Yellowstone, even though I love both. I mean, it ain't much of a difference. But I loved the realistic, authentic feel that Taylor brought to 1883.
Yeah, it was just I've always liked that Western kind of feel to things. It's just cool. I think I mean, Tim McGraw was huge when I was a kid too, and in high school, so that made sense as well. And I thought he did a pretty good job at it. And it just, you see those people go across that land, and you got a little glimpse of what it would have been like. I mean, just hardship after hardship after hardship. And in some ways, we have it super easy today in a lot of ways. But, there are going to be some hardships.
Yes.
Whether it's physically, whether it's in society, whatever it is, there's going to be hardships. And if we can learn to overcome the small daily battles with discipline, that's only going to propel us in the future battles as well that are even harder. Yeah.
Couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah.
All we can do is plant seeds at the end of the day. And then try to water them. Hopefully the plants grow.
Yeah, that's good.
I like to consider myself a realistic optimist. I'm real enough to call a spade a spade. I'm going to call it like I see it. But then I'm also going to try and see the positive in it. You can see a positive in anything you see. Sometimes you got to look hard for it. But there is a positive in every situation. And you brought up COVID. One positive with COVID was it kind of give us a sense of a good reminder. This could be over just like that.
Mm-hmm.
Another good one was, hey, we might need to start stocking up on some stuff, especially since then. And I'm in the trucking industry. It's very difficult right now to be able to get stuff still 2 years later because of shortages of this, that, and the other, and other countries playing politics and holding stuff back or jacking the prices up on this, that, and the other. I remember when diesel fuel back in 2008, my dad was an owner operator. I remember when diesel fuel went up to $5 a gallon back then.
Yep. You're right.
I mean, if we're not careful, we're going to be seeing $6 plus.
Oh yeah.
Think about that.
Yeah. It has been here. Yeah. It has been over $6.
Diesel fuel and gas are seasonal, just like everything else. I don't care what anybody else says. Pay real close attention at the start of the year. January, between Christmas and January, it's going to fluctuate up a little bit. Then it's going to go back down. Around Valentine's Day, it'll go back up a little bit. Then it'll come back down. Spring break goes back up. Why?
Yep.
I'm naming holidays off. What do we do on holidays?
Yep. We drive a lot.
Okay. After spring break, it's not going to drop much, but it is going to drop a little bit. Then all of a sudden around Memorial Day, it's going right back up. It'll come right back down, only to go right back up at the 4th of July. It'll come back down to go back up at Labor Day. Are you following me?
I got you.
It's going to go back down for until Halloween. Then it'll go back down, and then it's going to shoot right back up between Thanksgiving and Christmas. Why?
Yep.
Everybody's going home to go see their families. It's as
Yep.
seasonal as anything else in this world. But it just seems like lately, you know what I'm saying?
I hear you. Yeah,
I think there's a little gouging going on.
Oh yeah,
that might be my conspiracy theory, but I think there's a lot of gouging going on. And
I don't think any of it's by accident, personally, but it's all on purpose. I truly believe it is. They've talked about it for years, that this is part of this Green Deal thing that they've been trying to pass for a while. It's all on purpose, and I think it's all part of the plan.
Since we're going to go down this, a lot of people,
let's do it.
A lot of people think that it's part of the plan to get us back, get everybody to buy an electric car. Electric cars are great. I have no problem with an electric car. But here's what people are going to run into. Number one, our infrastructure is not set up for electric cars.
Not at all.
Not ready for it. Why? They're cutting off our coal. We can't produce as much coal as what we used to. Why? Because of all of these regulations and whatnot. The area that I live in right now, you cannot throw a rock in any direction without hitting an old coal mine. It is what it is. Walker County, Tuscaloosa, and Fayette County in the state of Alabama used to lead the country per capita in coal production. They used to flip-flop between 1, 2, and 3 every month.
Yeah.
You can look that up. It's accurate. All of that. Drummond Coal Company was huge. And now they've shipped all of their operations and everything out of Walker County down to Columbia and other places. Yeah. I get it. You mind us out, but still, God bless them for what they've done, because we wouldn't be here without them. At the same time, there's other places all around this USA that has massive coal reserves that nobody has touched. It is the cheapest form of energy. And one could argue, with all of the other regulations that's been put into place, some of the cleanest.
Yeah. I completely agree.
Why are we not using it? If we had that and use some of the government money to go through and fix our infrastructure, we're still looking at 10 years away from being able to handle the load of an electric car. On top of that, what happens when those batteries go out?
Yeah. You're exactly right.
Those batteries are not environmentally friendly.
Yeah.
Where are you going to put them? Go dump them in the ocean?
Yeah, you're exactly right. Here's a story for you. My dad works in the towing industry, and he was telling me a story the other day that they're trying to figure out how to tow these vehicles, because the energy, when the wheels turn, they build up energy, and there's nowhere for it to go. There's nothing there for it to store, especially if it's close or already fully charged. So they've had in their training videos, these cars, the batteries will just explode. Like, they'll just catch fire, they'll explode, and there's nothing they can do. So they're trying to figure out how to tow these vehicles without moving them, because of that energy that will build up. And they still don't have really a good solution. And I mean, you want to think maybe they just didn't think of this, but I really just don't think they care. I just don't think they care. I really don't.
That's what it feels like.
Yeah, it just does. I mean, to go see my in-laws, it's about a 4-hour drive, straight trip. Ends up being longer because kids and all that. But on a current electric vehicle, you give 8-hour charge time, not a Tesla. Those are a little quicker. 8-hour charge time. I'm having to stop at least 2 hours in, having to charge. Plus, I'm probably going to have to find somewhere to stay, because it's going to take another 8 hours to charge that thing, at least 75%, to just get me to their house. And that's saying, do they have a charger there at their house? Or do I have to go find one somewhere nearby? It makes absolutely zero sense. And it just, And there's so many other avenues they could take. They put windmills around us in a lot of these rural communities. And nothing against wind power, whatever. If you like it, you like it. But that energy doesn't even go to our small town.
No.
Like, it gets shipped over to Indianapolis. I mean, several hundred miles away. And it just, and truthfully, the stats show that it really doesn't produce that much. And then when those blades go bad, I've seen the videos, they have to bury them. They're fiberglass. They have to bury them.
Yeah.
There's nothing they can do with them. It just seems like, what are these people thinking? It just,
call me crazy, but I don't think they figured out a way to recycle fiberglass.
no, they haven't. Not yet. Nope. I've seen the videos where the earliest stages of these windmills, they just bury them. They bury them in the ground, cover them up in farm soil, and just I don't know what happens. It just doesn't make any sense.
We will never be in a situation where we are never dependent on oil again.
No.
Never. Unless somebody sets off an EMP over the top of our heads, God help us, and just sends us back to the Stone Age. Think about it. Almost everything that we touch these days, in one way, shape, form, or fashion, has been touched by oil.
Yeah.
Plastic is made of oil.
Yeah.
The paint on your car is made out of oil. Lotions that you use or whatever have some sort of petroleum products in them. You name it. Even our fruit these days have some sort of pesticides that's been sprayed on them. And I just about bet you one of the ingredients of that pesticide is some sort of petroleum.
Yep. You're right.
It's not going away.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and the whole gas and oil deal, that I'm just a simple podcaster and a truck driver. We import more oil than we use domestically, and we always ship out all of our oil. That makes no sense to me. Never has.
Absolutely no sense. No.
Why are we not using our own oil and importing less? Because if we did that, since we are the biggest importer of said oil, simple economics, you drop the demand, that price goes down.
Yeah, I know. I mean, but that's you and me. 1 + 1 = 2. But with some people, it equals 20. I don't understand.
I don't either.
And it's been the course of history. People have done this stuff, and it just doesn't make any sense. I mean, if I think about it too long, I get frustrated with it. But at the same time, just like, you know what? We've already decided we're not taking 4 kids. I mean, we're not going to do a family trip this summer. We're going to, hopefully it'll be better next summer. And it just, you have to make adjustments and make do with what you have, but it's a lot harder. I will say that. I mean, kids enjoy going down to the beach, but they're going to have to settle for the background pool this year.
I feel you. I live 45 miles away from my work, and I drive a Z71 GMC.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah. So you already know what I'm talking about.
You're going through it. Yeah.
Talking $90 a fill up, and it usually takes me 3 a week.
Yeah.
Do the math. I'm struggling.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I'm struggling. Talking about the kids and talking about positives and stuff from COVID. We're having to learn one right now.
Yeah.
Manage your money. Watch what you're spending. God knows I don't. That's one of my weak spots. It really is. Whenever
I understand it.
When I started working, I had the mentality, I busted my butt all week for this. I'm going to spend it if I want to.
Yep.
Now, your money, I can manage it all the way down to the penny.
It's always easier to do other people's. Yeah, I do.
That's the way I was raised. You treat other stuff a whole lot better than you treat yours.
Yep.
But when it comes to mine, swipe.
Yeah. No, I hear you.
It's something that I have to work on. I'm being open and honest with it right here in the middle of everything,
That's all right.
but it
Yeah.
is what it is. That's one facet that I've got to work on as a man. Another one, I've got to get off of my butt and get back in the gym. I'm 40 years old and I feel like I'm turning 60 because my joints are killing me every day.
Yeah.
Every time I get up, everything from the hips down pops, and it almost in unison.
Yeah.
I have to stand there for a minute and I'm like, oh God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, it's hard. I mean, it's hard to get motivated and, and get that discipline. I had been bulking up a little bit because I was doing some strongman type things, or trying, for my age, whatever, trying to build it up and get stronger, all that stuff, teach my son and stuff how to, do some basic squat routines and stuff. And there's a lot of different studies on that out there. And I mean, there's schools in Texas now that their PE time is actually teaching kids how to squat and deadlift, because they're finding that it helps with brain function, being more active. And it also helps. They've seen less injuries in sports now that kids are learning how to use their bodies and building up that strength in their bodies. And I've been working with my kids on that. We homeschool, so it kind of makes it a little easier to do that. But, it was March 27th, and I knew my eating had gotten a little out of control, and had gotten a little more out of control than what I thought. And I'd gotten some chicken. It was my wife's birthday, and a friend of mine looked at me and he's like, man, did you leave any for anybody else or something like that? And I was like, oh. And that one, it hit me, and it hit me hard. And he didn't mean anything by it. We were joking around, but I did some real introspection there and said, yeah, I need to make a change here. Yes, I was bulking, but now it's kind of gotten a little past where I wanted it to get. And I think I just hit 40 pounds lost. So, and that's through 3 birthdays, and it has been incredibly hard. My wife's always like, you make it look so easy. You don't say anything about it. You just do it. I'm like, you have no idea the internal struggles that are going on right now. That yellow cake that my daughter had for her birthday is like crying out to my name. Because I'm not 6'7", but I'm a big guy too. I always have been. I like to eat. I mean, I think all big guys like to eat, I like barbecue, and it's hard to leave the sauce off sometimes, but at the same time, it's one of those things, like I'm trying to teach my son. If I'm going to teach him, I need to live it out too and say, yeah, it's going to be hard right now, but on the other side, it's going to be a lot better for you guys and for me as well. So it's just, so much of life is just trying to be more consistent and stay that discipline like we're talking about. And it's hard. I mean, it's hard to do.
You can talk to a kid or anybody else until you're blue in the face.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to listen to you. Not all the time. They're going to watch you more than they listen to you.
You're right.
And it goes back to integrity.
Yeah.
That's one thing that was pushed on me real young. And I used to be a corrections officer. Anytime I told any inmate that I was going to do something, didn't matter what it was, I did it. That's the way I've tried to be my whole life. It's what I'm really trying to focus on more so now than I was before, because I've got people watching me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I want them, if I was to leave this world tomorrow, God forbid, the one main thing that I ever want anybody to say that actually gave a crap about me, he was authentic.
Yeah.
Authenticity and integrity mean, they mean the world to me. They're top. If you say you're going to do something, do it.
Yeah.
And that's, like I said, that's one thing that I've tried to teach. Hopefully it's
You're
stuck.
spot on. You're spot on, man.
You've got a lot of people out there, right or wrong, that have been around a lot of people that have said they was going to do this and said they were going to do that, but they never did do it. And that's a bad influence. And that's one. I've made 2 promises to my girlfriend who's listening to this right now, and she's already going to know what I'm fixing to say. I've made 2 promises to her that I have not kept in almost 3 years. 1, carrying her to Nashville. 2, carrying her to Savannah, Georgia. I have not done either one of those yet. And whether she wants to admit it or not, she has reminded me a few times. in her nice, subtle ways. I love you, Stacey, but you know what I'm saying.
Yep.
So, those are 2 things that I've got to do. Why? Yeah. I made a promise. It goes back to, he's probably not going to like this, but I'm going to tell this story anyway. This ought to explain it. Around the 4th of July last year, I had to go and do this, that, and the other for work while we were on shutdown. And I had some stuff in the back of my truck that I was going to carry up to her house. And I showed up on a Monday, which was a little out of the norm because we live an hour apart. Okay. This, that, and the other. Well, I pulled up, dropped the stuff off, and I was fixing to leave, and she pulled up. So said, hey, and I was just going to go. She said, well, need to holler at Xander. He'd have his feelings hurt if you showed up, didn't say hey or whatever. So she called him. He was over at his grandparents' house and just told him to come home and didn't tell him anything else. He seen my truck out front.
Oh.
Now let me backtrack. There's been several instances where boys will be boys. And I have said, don't make me come up there. Are you following me?
Oh yeah. Yep.
Okay. Me and her were standing in the living room. He comes in through the back door and walks through the kitchen and tiptoes. He sticks his head around the corner. He sees me and he has an automatic petrified look on his face. And I seen it. Now, I'm also a needler and an agitator. So when I saw that, it was like chumming the water for a shark. He was like, what are you doing here? And I looked at him, I looked at his mother, and I said, I'm here for an intervention. And she seen it and started bouncing off. And we had this whole little impromptu thing going. And the more we talked, the more scared he got. And he actually started crying. I busted out laughing, had to give him a hug. I said, you thought I'd come up here to give you a whooping, didn't you? Yeah. I said, well, why are you feeling guilty about something?
Yeah.
But there again, I'm not saying that to brag or anything like that, but I have kept my integrity with him to the point that just that right there, he thought he was in trouble because I've told him, don't make me come up here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He knows that if I tell him I'm going to do something, I do it.
Yeah. I just, it made me think of a story, but my 8-year-old, there's a bunch of kids that ride around. They all play sports and do all stuff together. And they've got this little bike gang, that rides around town. We're just a small town. So they ride around, do fun stuff, and hopefully not get into too much trouble. And, he comes back and he starts telling us all that they did. And I'm, going up by the railroad tracks and finding old metal stuff. And one of them found an old knife and they got all this, doing all this kind of dumb kid stuff. And I'm sitting there laughing because I'm like, my wife's, petrified that he's going to do something crazy. And I'm sitting there thinking, man, if he does half the stuff we did
Right.
as a kid, I'm like, this is nothing. I'm like, you got to let kids be creative, and boys will be boys to a degree,
Yes.
but they also know that there has to be that level of trust that, yeah, we did this, but I'm going to tell you, Dad, because I know that you need to know this. And I know that you're not going to, if I messed up, we're going to make some things right. But at the same time, if I didn't mess up and we're just doing it and I'm just going hanging out and I'm like, I don't know if this was a good idea or not. Was this a good idea that we were doing this? They need to have that level of security and integrity with you, knowing that, A, you're not going to blow up at them.
Right.
Because, a lot of people do.
Yeah.
And B, that it's also a safe spot that,
Yes.
especially boys, they need to know they can come to their dads and talk to them and let them know, here's what I'm going through. Here's what's going on. Maybe this was a dumb decision, but they need to know, yeah, but here's what you need to do next time to do better. And I'm going to walk through you. And that doesn't mean there's never any kind of discipline or things like that, but it does mean I'm going to walk through it with you so that you know better next time how to handle this, because I've been there, I've been through it, and we can learn through this together. And man, you're spot on doing that stuff. That's awesome to hear. I mean, character speaks so much louder. Integrity speaks so much louder, because you can lose it in an instant. And that's the hard part, but to earn it and keep it, man, that's hard. And you have to, though. And I think we just need so many people in this world who are high character people. And I think, we're living in a kind of a society that just wants to prop people up. And, you hear about people, they think they've been there a day, so they deserve the same amount of vacation time, the same amount of pay, same amount of this and that. I'm sure you see it in your industry. They think they deserve all that, right?
I say
But
I've been seeing it this week. Yeah.
yeah. And it's just like, yeah, but give me one person of high character who will go in there, work hard, do their job, say, what I get is what I get. Man, that person's going to rise up the totem pole so fast. I mean, they're going to rise up so much quicker for just being a hard worker. And it goes back to character, and it will not happen by chance. It has to be taught.
It does.
And that's what's on us. We have to teach girls too, but I mean, boys is more of our focus, I think, in this realm. You have to be taught to be a high character person, and girls too. They have to be taught that too. They need to know that there are different standards, and maybe a mom is going to be able to teach them that better than a dad will. But the dad is going to be the one that they look to for that kind of parental, if they get married, future husband type role. That's what they're going to be looking for. So the standard and the pressure on guys is huge. But I think God has designed men, and you see it all throughout history. Go back to biblical times, go back to just historical people. God has designed men to be able to bear that weight. There was never a job or a weight that I think women were meant to bear, but men in particular were meant to bear that. And you see some fell, but a whole lot of others rose up. And I get pumped by that. I get excited because it's motivating. It gives me kind of a shot of energy, if you will, because I want to be that to future generations. And no one's going to know my name in the future, but if I can leave a mark with my sons, and then they leave a mark with their sons, and then so on, that's all I care about. That's what I want to see.
as a man, I can't teach a little girl how to be a woman.
Exactly.
I can't do it. The only thing that I can do is be the proper male role model for her.
Yep.
That way she could see what to look for in a man whenever she decides she wants to fall in love and get married.
Yeah.
I can teach her how to be as self-sufficient as she possibly can. That way she could say, well, I'm a strong, independent woman. I don't need no man.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I know.
If I were to have a daughter tomorrow, I would want her to be in a position to where she doesn't need a man. She wants a man. Needing a man and wanting a man are two different things altogether.
Yeah.
That would be what I would want if I had a daughter.
Yeah, that's good.
As far as like you were talking about leaving a mark, I'm like you. Once, if I'm gone, unless this podcast happens to take off and I touch 1,000 lives or more, nobody's going to remember me after 1 or 2 generations. I know that.
Yeah.
But I go back to a conversation that I had with my own dad. And I think I've told this story before, but I'm going to tell it again because it means the world to me. And I've also had this conversation with my mother as well. My dad was always funny about having life lessons moments at just awkward times. But he was right there in the hallway. He had just come out of his bedroom, and I could still remember it vividly like it was yesterday. You could tell he had something on his mind. He'd been thinking about this hard. Mm-hmm. And he said, I know a lot of stuff whenever you was a kid, and I wouldn't let you do this when other kids was doing it. All of this stuff. And he started having a tear in his eyes, and he said, but I always did the best I could. And seeing a tear in my dad's eye at that time was very few and far between. I can still count on one hand how many times I ever saw my dad cry outside of church.
Yeah.
In that instance, he was a very stoic man. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
He didn't show his emotions like that a lot. When he did, it was big. So I told him, Dad, I said, I saw the struggles that you and Mom did. And I was already in my late 20s, early 30s whenever this happened. And actually I was in my 20s. And I told him, I said, this is possibly the best compliment that I could ever give you. I said, if I'm ever lucky enough to have any children of my own, whether they be boys, girls, whatever, I said, I want to do my best to raise my kids the exact same way that I was raised. I said, I can't put it any better than that, and I can't give you a better compliment than that. That's how much I appreciate what you and Mom done for me. They robbed Peter to pay Paul to give me everything that I needed and some of what I wanted. Yeah. I didn't have everything I wanted, but I didn't go without.
Yeah.
And the last 2 years of my high school, my dad went from being an owner operator to hauling or being a company driver and was barely making $15 an hour. And yet I went to a private school where we had to pay my tuition year round, and I never missed a payment.
Yeah.
He was asked, if he needed any help several times. They never would take it. God bless my mom and dad. And he's no longer with us, but there's been several instances where I've been through some stuff, or we just wanting to talk and brag about it. And then, he's not here, but I can still hear him in my head.
Yeah.
I can still hear the lessons that he taught me. My dad was
Yeah.
my best friend. My dad, my he'd he'd knocked the bejesus out of me if I deserved it, or he'd give
Yeah.
me a hug if I deserved it. You
Yeah.
know, he wore so many hats with me, and you know, I want to be that. What I had, I want to pay it forward.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I can't put
That's cool, man.
that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. His legacy lives on through you by you wanting to do those things. And it will keep going. I mean, you're already, it sounds like, doing those things. It's cool to hear. I love hearing the stories like this. It's great.
Justin, I appreciate you coming on the show. Any last thoughts that you would like to share? I'd love to have you back. Anytime you want
Yeah.
to come back, you just reach out.
That's yeah, we need to, as college football gets closer, we need to have a chat. See if Bryce Young's going to win the Heisman this year.
Think so?
He's a good quarterback. I'll say that. But now the spotlight's on him. So
yeah.
Guys, they usually, that first year they're amazing. No, they can do nothing wrong. And then that second year, when they try to nitpick all their little tendencies and all that, it's like, oh well, maybe this guy isn't so hot, But I like college football, so I'm getting kind of excited for it because it's been a while.
All right, folks. There will be a return for this. I'll go ahead.
Oh yeah. Now I'll warn you, I'm a college football fan, but I root for a blue and gold team. So because I'm a little northern here.
Blue and gold team.
Yeah, from the South Bend area.
You and another friend that I have. Yeah.
I like the Irish. I will see what happens. They the thing was, I grew up right in between Lafayette and Bloomington is where IU and Purdue were, and I was equal distances from both. Both had horrible football teams until Drew Brees came into the scene. And he was amazing for Purdue, but the one team that was always on TV was Notre Dame. And you could always catch the Irish. Even when they were horrible, you could still watch them every single weekend. And so I just started becoming a fan. My wife's from that area, so it's fun. I just enjoy talking about football, to be honest.
Just like I told a friend of mine, the other friend who happens to root for the blue and gold that also wears green every once in a blue moon. If I were to have lived in that area and grew up in that area, I too would root for the Irish because I'm drawn to tradition.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
But since I live where I live, I will yell "Roll Tide" till the day I die.
And I don't blame you at all. You have all the bragging rights until Nick Saban decides to hang it up.
Brother, I'm old school. I remember when 6-6 and going to the Music City Bowl was one heck of a season.
Yeah. Yep. You're right.
And again, I'm a realistic optimist. Those days are coming again. Again.
Yep. And Saban leaves, I don't know what they'll do, really. I mean, there's names that get thrown out there all the time, but he wasn't a in-house person. I mean, it was a gamble.
They will do exactly what they done when Bear Bryant retired.
Yeah.
After Bear Bryant retired, you had to have a tie to Bear Bryant's program or you didn't get in the door. The only one person there for the longest had no connections to him. That was Bill Curry. He lasted 4 years. Had a heck of a run, but he lost to Auburn all 4 years and got bricks thrown through his windows and got ran out because he lost to Auburn.
I like tradition too, and that's part of why I like Notre Dame as well. It's because of the tradition. One of the coolest things, they've got a new head coach. The last head coach, he's the coach of LSU now.
Brian Kelly. Still to this day do not understand that hire.
I don't either. and I'm not a huge fan of him at all. He
No.
was not a very high character person. The new guy is. He is a very. I know some people who are. He's a coach up there in Northern Indiana. He's met him. He's gotten to know him a little bit. High character guy. He is up there, and he said one of the things he did, because Kelly never did it, he brought back he invited back all former players to their, blue and gold kind of spring game thing they do. And there were guys who hadn't been there in 40 years coming and showing. I would have loved, I tried to get up there. I tried to work it out with my wife's family so we could stay up there that weekend, because that would have been, you're talking Joe Montana, you're talking, these Jerome Bettis, these guys who, legends, all Rocket coming back up there and all being in the same general area. You're like, whoa, this is tradition. And this new coach, he knows. He hasn't coached a game yet. I don't know what he'll be like on that area, but he gets that school. He gets the tradition, and he wants to see it be successful. And it's just cool. And truthfully, I don't all this these teams joining the SEC and all this other stuff. I think it's going to ruin some of it. Personally, NIL is ruining it to a degree. And I'm not totally against players earning money for their name. I just don't like how they're doing it right now. But we could talk about this for like 2 hours.
Oh yeah, we could.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So let's plan closer to the season.
It's coming. It's coming.
Yeah.
Not just the football season, but we're going to be talking about it. I guarantee you. We'll go ahead and write it down. Let's make it happen.
Let's do it. We'll do it.
If you would tell people where they can find you, follow you.
Yeah.
On all your social.
Oh yeah. Instagram is my primary, at Be a Man Bam, because Be a Man was already taken. So I had to throw on that Bam there at the end to really hit the point, drive the point home. So that's the main source. I'm on Twitter some, but mainly just Instagram. And you can always hook me up on email as well, jhunter2121@gmail.com. I love interacting, having conversations. I really appreciate you having me on. It's been a fun conversation.
Yes,
I love talking about this stuff. Yeah.
Oh, we're gonna do it again. I guarantee you.
Good.
Matter of fact, I won't even say guarantee. I'm gonna say I promise you we're gonna do it again.
Hey, I like that. That's good.
Justin Smith, thank you very much, my friend. Big thanks to Justin Smith for coming on the Porch. Follow him on Instagram and tell Justin you heard him on Porch Matters. If you are new to the show and like what you hear, hit that like, subscribe, or follow button and download the episodes in our archives. If this show has been a positive addition to your life, please rate the show and leave a review. Won't take you but a minute, and it really would help the show. Find us on social media by typing Porch Matters Podcast in the search bar. Word of mouth is still the best way of sharing. Pick your favorite episode and share it with at least one person this week. There are a lot of people out there that have never heard of a podcast before. I sure would appreciate it, and I'll see you next time right here on Porch Matters.